All right, I'm back at the IDW booth here at New York Comic Con, and I'm with the creative team behind the new and upcoming Star Trek series. I'll let them introduce themselves and what they are doing for the comic.
Absolutely. I'm Colin Kelly.
And I'm Jackson Lanzing. And we're the writers of Star Trek #1.
Oh, familiar names. I hear you have some other stuff out.
We're here and there. Yeah.
Well, for the other side of the audience, our lovely host is wearing a Captain America shirt. Which,
that's our boy.
That's our boy.
Yeah, we're Captain America Settled Liberty over Marvel, Batman Beyond Neo here at DC. We're and now Star Trek here at IDW, which is honestly just our dream project.
So let's start off with what's your history with Star Trek, maybe the TV show, and then.
Absolutely. The TV show, actually getting started with Next Generation was kind of where my teeth were cut. Every time it was on, you're sitting down. I sat down with my dad. He'd make us burgers and milkshakes. We would watch Star Trek, and that was one of our formative bonding kind of experiences.
My mom used Star Trek to raise me, so one of my very earliest memories is watching Best of Both Worlds Part 1 when it first aired and being like, what? And I got to stay up late for once and watch Star Trek with my mom. And then after that, it really became her way of trying to teach me good morals and how to think through problems and how to work out scientific and mathematical problems and how to work with other people and how to understand diversity. And she just how to make a promise and how to use honor and how to keep up to your word. All these things were taught to me by Star Trek. So Star Trek really was like a formative teaching experience for me as much as it was a fiction story. And so as I became older and got to re-engage with it as an adult, I got to sort of rediscover all the drama and all the story and all that, because a lot of it to me was conceptual coming up.
And to kind of bridge the gap, do you do you remember the first comic that you read, or maybe the one that kind of got you interested in the medium?
Well, I can tell you, comics. Yeah, comics is rough because we both were reading comics since we were little kids.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to be what was the one that I'll say that the one that got me into Star Trek comics was Mike Johnson's Countdown, which I still think is maybe one of the greatest tie-in comics of all time. I think it is a perfect tie-in comic. It does exactly what you need it to do, but it also told this totally new story. It took all my favorite characters and pushed them forward. Suddenly, anybody could show up. Spock was there, but also Worf was there, but also Picard was there. It really felt like anybody could show up from any of the series, which was a really exciting feeling as a Star Trek fan, because it wasn't like I was walking in and going, I'm going to read an episode of Next Gen, or I'm going to read an episode of DS9. It was, I'm going to read an episode of Star Trek. And so when we started kicking off on Star Trek #1, in all honesty, Countdown is very much at the forefront of our minds. Is that's the North Star. That's the kind of thing you're trying to do, where you're creating an experience where Star Trek feels like a living universe, not like a bunch of individual discrete shows.
Yep. I think my first comic was I picked up through the Scholastic Book Fair. I got a subscription to Captain America, and it came every month, folded up and stuffed into my inbox. It was right around Cap Wolf. So obviously, Captain America as a werewolf is the coolest he can possibly be.
Star Trek #1 is a pan-galactic Star Trek series. It is not just Next Generation or Deep Space Nine or Voyager or Star Trek or Enterprise or Lower Decks. It's all of them. We're taking characters from across the Star Trek canon. We're putting them in a single ship, a single new ship, on a single new mission that's going to become a new ongoing series heading out for as long as we can sustain it. We're trying a totally new tack on Star Trek series here. And we're starting by bringing Benjamin Sisko, captain from Deep Space Nine, out of the wormhole, back out into the world to try a new mission with this new crew, deigned to him by the prophets. So this is also a mission that Starfleet is not entirely sanctioned and is a little cautious about. So everybody on the ship has something to prove a little bit as they head out on this crazy new mission.
And the neat thing is, this all takes place, there's a star date, 2378, which is right after Voyager comes back and right before Nemesis kicks in. So there is this time period when we say it's pulling from everywhere, we don't mean there's a time ripple. The Nexus is back. And everyone's like, no. They're all alive at the same time. So bringing them together, our hope was to treat this like the Avengers, treat this like the living universe, and effectively bring in the best for this one mission that hopefully will run for 1,000 years.
And then the cool thing about this is because of the way that it's designed, obviously a lot of characters are left on the table. We can only put so many people on the bridge of the Theseus. So we've got a couple of characters from Next Gen, a couple of characters from Deep Space Nine, a couple of characters from Voyager, some characters with Enterprise or Lower Decks connections. But we just today, here at New York Comic Con, announced that this book is actually going to split off into a second book. Worf is going to enter this book in issue 2 and leave this book in issue 5 to start his own book, Star Trek Defiant, written by Chris Cantwell, who does Iron Man, written by with art by Angel Uzueza, who's also doing Iron Man. And those two are going to take this. They're going to take Worf, team him up with Spock and Ro Loren and Lore and B'Elanna Torres, and they're going to go out on a crazy new mission that is going to sit sort of counter to this. And these books are going to weave in and out. Expect crossovers, expect connective tissue. Like, we're really trying to make a shared living universe out of Star Trek and comics for the first time.
Now, is there a character that you kind of, when you're writing, is your, I guess, baby?
Oh,
who's your baby in your Star Trek book?
I mean, I'm sure we have different babies. I gotta be honest, it's wild, but like Benjamin Sisko. Ben Sisko is the character I have been wanting to write and who has been effectively completely off limits to anyone for the history of this. Like, there haven't been a lot of Ben Sisko stories since the Deep Space Nine comics back in the day. So getting to come back to Benjamin Sisko and start telling new stories about him and Jake moving forward from him disappearing into the wormhole for 3 years, it's just so rich. There's so much to it. I just love doing it.
So I would like my answer to be either the first officer of the ship, Data, or the medical officer, Beverly Crusher. Because I love writing. Data is my favorite character, and Beverly Crusher is so intelligent and so clever and so one step ahead of everyone. Unfortunately, the baby that I love writing the most is my garbage child, Tom Paris, at the helm, who is just he's the hot shot. He's the hottest of the hot shots. But as we like to make the joke, this is the story where he's going to earn his commemorative plates.
Yep, this is how he gets that Lower Decks commemorative plate. We also have a couple of not actual babies, but babies comparatively on our bridge. We have this character named Lily Sato, who is a 7th generation Starfleet brat. She's a new character. She's the Andorian on the cover of issue 1, but she also connects us to Enterprise, to Hoshi Sato, the original communications officer and developer of the Universal Translator. Lily's got a lot to prove because she's from a very famous family and she doesn't have all the inherent skill of her predecessor. So she has to learn how to do it with good old-fashioned hard work and by just like staying up and cramming. She's awesome, and I really love the sort of young, impassioned energy she brings to the table. She lets us get a little fun and a little bit of that like Tilly flavor from Discovery into the book.
And the other character we're introducing is a Vulcan named Talir. One thing about Talir is not only do Spock is their role model, but they're far more taciturn. They're holding on to a lot of secrets, but Talir is also non-binary. And we felt it was really time for Star Trek to kind of be catching up to our modern climate and embrace the fact that gender is a spectrum. So why do we keep putting things on a binary?
And obviously, a lot of strides have been done with that on Star Trek Discovery in the last couple of years. And so it's been very nice to see that over the last few years we've worked on Star Trek to introduce non-binary characters. So too has Star Trek as a proper thing really opened up and started to look at that, looking beyond the binary. So it's been really very cool to see.
Now, can you talk a little bit about your creative process and writing? Do you kind of just, bounce ideas off of each other and you see who can outdo the other one, or?
Basically, yeah. Colin and I have been best friends since we were 18. Like, we met really young, and we've had the pleasure of sort of getting to grow up together and figure out what stories mean to us. So we have a very shared storytelling language now where
we've been writing pretty much nonstop. We've been writing nonstop with each other for almost 12 years at this point.
Yeah, we call ourselves a hive mind. We don't do a lot of solo work. Like, this is the writer. Our process is super collaborative. We get together every Thursday night and every Sunday for the last 12 years because we have day jobs, and which we are like literally like on the verge of letting go of, right? But we've been having to balance this against our normal lives for a very long time, And the way that we do that is discipline. We get together, we hold ourselves to account. Every Thursday, every Sunday, we break whatever needs to get broken. We talk out. He throws crazy ideas at me. I throw crazy ideas at him.
So in that sense, you're totally correct.
We try to crazy each other out.
We try to crazy each other out because it's the game is just, if I can get him to say, damn, that's cool, right?
Then it makes the book.
Then it's in the movie.
And it's the same thing we do. So we do exactly that. And then we sit and we write extremely detailed outlines, like really specific page by page outlines. And then those get split up. And each of us writes half of anything we write. So any Hive Mind book that you ever read, with half of it was written by Colin and half of it was written by me, but I guarantee you can't tell the difference because we've literally grown into that solid a writer as a pair. Then I don't think there's really a lot of telltale signs of me or him left.
And who's the artist on the book?
So the artist on the book is Ramon Rosanas, the artist from Marvel Star Wars and Nick Spencer's Ant-Man. Just an absolute like old school pro. Incredible artist, obviously amazing with likenesses, amazing with drama, great designer, designed the Theseus.
As a designer, these new suits, these new uniforms they're wearing.
Yep.
And the great thing is, he loves this stuff.
He loves Star Trek, which, thank God.
Yeah. There's Star Trek is a very complicated world for an artist to step into, right? A lot of beige carpets, a lot of people standing and looking out at the stars. So you need to find someone who's passionate about the drama of the characters and the world. And luckily, Ramon brings that in spades.
When you guys, I assume you guys pitched the idea for the book to IDW. Were they on board from the get-go, or did they have some reservations, or what was?
They were staggeringly on board from the get-go. Here's what I'll say. 5 years ago, we went to IDW and we pitched this. Yeah. It was a different version of this, but it was a version of the same idea.
We came in with all the star charts, right? Yeah. The amazing star charts they printed.
We showed them all the books. We showed them the lines. We did this whole thing. And at that point, it was too ambitious. And I think Star Trek was they were just starting Picard season 1. They were like, we want some space to actually like make sure we can build the canon on Trek before we go like accidentally invalidating a bunch of comic books, right? Which really felt like the right move. A few years later, after Star Trek Year 5, Heather Rantos calls us up. She's just come into the Star Trek office, or the editor on this line, and she came in and she called us up and said, hey guys, what's it look like if it's just called Star Trek? And we turned in a proposal that had Star Trek and Star Trek Defiant right next to each other. And we were like, this is what it looks like. And she said, well, you guys can only write one of those. We were like, fine, Chris Cantwell can write the other one. He'll do it better than we ever could. And in the meantime, we'll do Flagship. And we sent these two things in place and honestly just started. Like
very little after
this is the cast we originally pitched. This is the book we wanted to do. There hasn't been corporate interference. There's been corporate support. Star Trek and Paramount and CBS have come out to support this book. They have backed it. They've given us access. They've helped us understand what's on limits and what's off limits. And really almost nothing is off limits. It's been a remarkable experience for us because this should be impossible. This should be a giant licensing nightmare. And somehow instead it's a thing that they're putting all of their effort behind. It's very cool.
So I guess my final question is the Star Trek property is crossed over with different properties from other companies. When should we expect the Star Trek Captain America?
Oh, with the nacelle shaped like the shield? Well, you know what? I'm going to call up Mr. Marvel. We're going to get this on the books.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Honestly, if we weren't, here's my little, this will never happen.
Will never happen.
But I'd love to see like a Star Trek Shi'ar, like X-Men, like we want to get that good space stuff in there.
Well, the Star Trek did meet the X-Men.
Yep.
Yep.
It has happened. It has happened for a while. It would be very cool to do it again. No, we're honestly, it might sound a little, it might be like a downer answer, and I apologize.
No, it's just kind of
but part of what I think is really, like, one of the main things behind this book is that we don't want this to be like Star Trek comics have been before. Meaning that we don't want this to cross over. And we don't want to do a bunch of time travel multiverse stuff. And we're not trying to set reset buttons or rely on other IP to bring eyes to Star Trek. We want Star Trek to speak for itself. We want this book to be able to say to any reader of comics, you should read some Star Trek and have a real point and be right. Like we're not trying to trick people into reading Star Trek. We're trying to get people to want to read Star
Get
Trek.
excited about Star Trek
Yeah.
because Star Trek is goddamn exciting.
Yeah, Star Trek rocks. It's a deep and awesome living universe. It's been going longer than the MCU. It's been going longer than any of this stuff. It's been going longer than Star Wars as an active property, and it really should have the kind of footprint and the kind of respect in the comic space that those IP do. So we're really excited.
So, just to kind of wrap up, give me your best pitch for the book, and also where people can follow you on social media.
Wow, was that not my best pitch for the book?
Let me see what I can do.
All right.
This is the story of Benjamin Sisko returning from the wormhole with a mission from the prophets because someone out there is killing gods. The extra dimensional, the Kardashev level 3 civilizations are under threat, and that includes the prophets themselves. So who better to try and save the universe than Benjamin Sisko?
There you go. It's for the God Butcher, but with Star Trek. Yeah, that's effectively accurate. Here's my sales pitch for the book. If you were a fan of Star Trek, if you're the opposite of everything that I've been talking about like new readers and new people, and you like love Star Trek comics, you read Year 5, you read Star Trek Klingons, you like what we're doing, all of that is getting incorporated. I would say if you're a Star Trek fan, know that we are also giant Star Trek nerds, that we have been working on these comics for a while, and that we know what we've been building, and that a lot of what we've been slowly seeding is going to start seeing payoffs in the core Star Trek book. So it's so we want to make a book that we would be excited to read.
And
And how to find us? Yes. I'm at Jackson Lanzing on Twitter. That's JCK SONLANZING on Twitter. And I'm found in the wild on Instagram.
And I'm CP Kelly on Twitter. The P is a mystery.
all right, well, thank you guys for taking the time to talk and just chat. I can tell that you're very excited about this book, and it's going to be great, and I can't wait to read it, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hey, thank you very much. You too.